Hello there, and a good afternoon, may I be the first to say. It's 12:04. Happy to be with you on this Monday, August 7, 2023. My name is Matt Murphy. We've got 3 hours together. I hope you're able to spend every single moment right there on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, whether you're listening on the terrestrial radio side of things on 99.7 WTN's radio station, or on the internet streaming. There's lots of platforms to find that. You can also watch us on Super Talk TV. There's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and a hello to you. Welcome to episode 393. Lots to get into. You may participate either on the phone lines, the Super Text line, or the chat line. That's brought to you by F&M Bank. On the chat line, you can find it right there on any of the platforms that you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. You chat, and it'll appear right there on the chat line. We appreciate your participation, and there's lots to participate about today. We will continue to discuss the the results of the Davidson County races that were conducted last Thursday to completion. We've got some runoffs to talk about, to include Freddie O'Connell and Alice Rowley as mayor, the next mayor of the city of Nashville. One of those two will end up being the next mayor. We were scheduled to have Alice on today. She was unable to do that. They've just got a lot going on right now, as you might imagine. There are a lot of people coming out of the woodwork trying to figure out if she's the person that they'll be supporting. There's, fundraising and all of these sorts of things. So I completely understand that. We expect to have Alice on a little later on this week. And I have plans to reach out to Freddie O'Connell this afternoon to have him on. I have no doubt that he'll be on with us as he's been on before. So there's that going on. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Out and about, spending some time. I have to do something. By the way, Bell K's behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speaker sounds as good as humanly possible, and I appreciate him for doing so. Looking great. He's letting the goatee go back. You're letting the goatee get back? Huh?
No, I abhor shaving. I'm not going to let it go.
How's the while I ask you this question, if you're watching on TV, you're going to see something rude, but I'm asking him this question. There used to be the magic of radio where you wouldn't see any of this happening, but I have to dampen these lights. Otherwise, I'm going to have a huge headache. So I'm going to ask you this question, then I'm going to dampen the lights while you answer. But I'll be listening. Don't worry. If you're watching on TV, you'll see it. How's the car search going?
It's a little bit. These kind of things always frustrate me because it's one of those situations in life where, especially when you're looking for a used car, the choices are just like stars in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So it really gets down to, making a choice. And I'm just sitting there looking around going, no, I want that. No, I want that. No, I want that. No, I want that one. And so at some point you just got to go, I'm going to buy that one.
Because you expect that this is a, minimum 5-year commitment, right?
Well, I mean, not loan-wise, but I want a car that's going to last me.
No, I'm saying that you'll be in the next vehicle that you select for the next 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. So you want it to be the right thing.
Right, yeah.
And I like the idea of that Volvo. You would, a Volvo and you would.
Well, that's what I had before the Escape got pancaked.
Mm-hmm. For those that don't know, Belle was I don't think we made a big deal about it, but
no.
You were in a little bit of an accident.
Yeah, I was driving home on 31 and the traffic slowed down suddenly. The woman stopped in front of me, so I stopped behind her, and then the woman behind me stopped, but the person behind her chose not to stop, and they were speeding, and she hit the woman behind me so hard that it hit me, and it was like a domino effect and just pancaked everybody. And this weekend, I got an email I got a letter from her insurance company saying her insurance was not in effect.
Well, what does that mean?
It means that my uninsured motorist coverage now comes into play.
But still, they're taking care of it.
Well, they have to. I mean, but my insurance company will have to take care of it and then go sue her
to get their money back.
Yeah. And the fact that woman walked away from the wreck without an injury is a miracle because her engine was pretty much into the passenger's compartment.
That's incredible. But yeah. I predicted to you after the wreck, you were okay. Front and back of the car, not so much. They totaled out your Escape.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, and you were concerned, and I didn't know the answer to this. You were concerned, well, am I going to be responsible for the person in front of me? Obviously, the person that hit you is responsible for you. But the question then is, am I responsible for hitting the person in front of me? And the answer is no.
Yeah, my assumption was, well, I didn't give enough space between us for something to happen. But as it turns out, the woman who started the domino is responsible for everybody.
For all dominoes that subsequently fell And Jason writes in, and I love this. I love the vague movie reference. It's one of my favorite Dudley Moore movies called Crazy People, where he's an ad executive. Volvo, boxy, but safe.
Hey, I've had a Volvo, and those things last forever.
No, they do. Volvo's German-made automobiles. Volvo's what, a Swedish?
Yes, Volvo's Swedish.
Absolutely. 100%.
It's a Volvo that actually holds the record for the longest time on a single engine on the road, with almost 2.5 million miles.
Yeah, someone's suggesting a Toyota Camry. I mean,
that's what I'm driving now as a rental, and those things are sweet.
Yeah,
I thought they were
good.
just, when I first got the thing, I was like, Camry, whatever. Everybody drives those. Well, there's a reason everybody drives them, because they're pretty nice.
I had a buddy who was my grandpa was a big machine mechanic or a big equipment mechanic, but he knew everything about engines there is to know. And I had a good buddy who was a car mechanic. He ran an auto shop in Birmingham, Alabama. And if you asked Jim Moore what type of car you should get, he would tell you the opposite, because he wants business.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, you want to know what kind of car to get? Oh, get a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Man, Grand Cherokee's put a pool in my backyard. Get a Grand Cherokee. Like, wait a minute. Well, what? And you ask him, well, what car should I avoid, Jim? Oh, don't get a Toyota. Toyotas are awful. Don't get anything.
I can't make a house note on a Toyota.
No, don't get Volvo. No Volvos. So you just, whatever he tells you to do the opposite. But yes, Volvo, boxy but safe. That is a vague reference to the movie Crazy People, which I don't think could be made today, starring Dudley Moore, Daryl Hannah, amongst others. Dudley Moore goes insane. He's an ad executive, and he has a temporary moment, and they put him in the nut house where he meets all of these other really crazy people, and they start doing ads. Like, he has to get ads out because he's an ad executive. And so the crazy people start doing his ads for them. Like, they did one for an airline. And it's not Delta, but it's like Delta. And there's a photograph of a crashed plane. And it's a Delta. We crash less.
We don't do this.
Anyway. All right. Well, I'm glad the hunt is going well. You got plenty of time. You got the rental for another, 10 days?
I have to have it back next Monday.
Just trash that thing.
I was actually, somebody from Enterprise called me about, buying one of their used cars, and the guy at the credit union was like, don't do that. They abuse those vehicles to death.
No,
like, you know what? Having been a promotion person and traveled a lot, you are correct. I have beat the hell out of some rental cars.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and, we attempt to believe that we're the first person in the car and we're the only ones that would abuse the car. It's like a hotel room. Jim Gaffigan does a great bit about hotel rooms. It's like he's sitting naked on the sofa, and then when he comes upon the realization that I'm not the first person to do this. Oh! Well, good luck on the search. All right, so lots to get into. Ron DeSantis kind of taking it to Donald Trump on COVID-19. This is potentially an effort on the part of Ron DeSantis to kind of reset his presidential campaign. Not that I believe that it will work. We will discuss it. The Big Machine Music City GP was over the weekend, and I've got a funny story to tell you with regard to that. I hope that you win. If you did, I mean, I had a great time. I don't know what your experience was like, but my experience was tip-top. Had great friends there, had a great time there, posted some photos on social media if you want to go check some of that out. Went out to Hendersonville Saturday. I want to tell you about how that was. Just kind of a weekend recap, especially considering that these were things that are either important to the city, a la tourism dollars or whatnot, or important to cultural touchstones in a lot of what we talk about, a la Hendersonville and the See You at the Library event.
Did you have any kind of an in-depth conversation with Riley at all on Saturday?
I had a great conversation with Riley Gaines. And she's set to come on the show again next time she's in town. Absolutely big fan of the show. Yes. Said something about a curtain. I don't know. I think she wants a curtain of some sort between you and her. She's heard of you, and
an iron curtain.
Thinks you might be a little bit creepy. I don't know.
A little bit.
My favorite part of the day so far, I need to circle back to something. Squirrel! My favorite part of the day so far, squirrel, was when Belle Kay asked me if Cadillacs were for old people. because he said, I hear decent things about Cadillacs, but, I feel like they're for old people. To which I said, Bell, you're old people.
Shut up. I am 28 years old in my head.
What did I tell you, though? You're not in the middle of the end.
I'm at the beginning of the
You're
end.
at the beginning of the end, which is okay. I mean, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you at birth, you're at the beginning of the beginning. And then by the time you get to like 21, 22, you're at the end of the beginning and you're at the beginning of the middle. And now 50 plus, you're at the beginning of the end. You're not at the end of the end. You're not in the middle of the end. You're at the beginning of the end. And I'm about to be 50 myself, so I get it. I understand that.
Yeah, it's basically 2.5 weeks and you're 50.
What will you be? Do you not say? Are you one of those guys that don't? I mean, no, I'm not picking on you. I'm just being serious. Do you not say?
No,
You
not
just take
anymore.
away, shy away from it.
It's a false number because I know in my head I'm not really that old.
But then why does it bother you?
Because it's a false number, and I don't think that false number should be put out into the.
I mean,
ether.
it's a real number
No,
in the
it's not a
sense
real
that
number.
you were born on a particular day in a particular year.
I doubt that more every day.
Yeah, the 50's the new 40, or 80's the new whatever.
Shut up.
I mean, I love that. 80's or 70's the new 80, or what? How does it go? Which way is it? It's
I am not Johnny B.
80's the new 70. Is that right? Yeah, I'm saying it right. Or
70's the new 60.
80's the new 70, but most 70. Well, I won't say that. 90's the new 80, but most 80-year-olds I know, they look like crap. So it doesn't really matter.
Open up your face and put some pie in it.
Nobody tell Dan Mandis about my knee. Okay? That's all I'm worried about. My knee's kind of janked up. I'm weak right now. He could beat me right now.
Today's not the day to mess with Dan.
In pickleball. He could destroy me right now in pickleball. I got a knee problem. Got this knee brace on.
I ain't messing with Dan.
Well, not brace. It's a compression sleeve.
Yeah.
You're not messing with Dan?
Yeah.
Did you see what he was wearing this morning? That's why he's having a bad day.
I showed you the text he sent me.
So if you are not on Super Talk TV, while we get these we'll get the pleasantries out of the way. We'll get it going in a second. If you're watching on Talk TV, I wore this shirt for Dan, just to kind of show him what a traditional Hawaiian shirt might look like, as opposed to the mess he was wearing this morning. But he claimed that he was doing it because I was picking on him about his various shades of gray, which I think he owns quite well. I wasn't even picking. I was just observing. Speaking of that, I observed something over the weekend that I don't know what to say about it, except I posted a video of it on my social medias. You can find me at Matt Murphy Show on Twitter, Matt Murphy Show on Instagram, Matt Murphy or Matt Murphy Show on Facebook. Go to the Matt Murphy Show page, the public page, because my other page is full. That said, no disrespect to anyone involved in what happened here. I was just confused about what was happening. So I go to the Music City Grand Prix, had a lovely listener at the Jack Daniels booth say hello, big shout out, wanted me to say hello to you, Belle. Big listener to the show. She said I didn't want to fangirl on us, but, love the show. That was very sweet of her. Thank you.
That is nice.
That was very nice. Anyway, we meander. Our friends, E and I, we meander through the proceedings. We see some of the preliminaries, and then eventually we make our way to kind of the grandstand area. We're going toward the grandstand area where we will be watching the big race. And you go under the Korean War Veterans Bridge, and there to the left, as you go under the bridge to get to that area of the track, you have there's a bar that's been set up, like an under-the-bridge bar, which is pretty cool. And I guess I need to go. I hesitate to do this because it's not about the group that was putting on the event. It's probably more about the distributors. But the bar was a Tootsie's Kid Rock joint. So that would be Steve Smith, who we talked to on Friday, right? That would be his joint. So I just noticed something that I find very curious. They were giving away Bud Light. They were giving it away.
Well, that's about all you can do with it these days.
And I was wondering why. Now, I could have, and probably do, have a lot of commentary to say about how all of this happened, how we got here. So without judging and without being confrontational, I asked a few of the bartenders and the folks there that were serving if I was like, who's paying for these? Like, who's giving these away? I don't think it's the retailer. I don't think Tootsie's or Kid Rock's bar is giving these away. I don't think it's the retail establishment doing it. I can only assume that it's the distributor, right? I don't think it would be Anheuser-Busch either.
Yeah, I think you have to. Yeah,
I would think it would be the distributor.
Yeah,
and I was just genuinely curious as to why they were doing that. There's really the two reasons that I thought of. Well, three. One is a more long-term impact, to try to see the light at the end of the tunnel. No one's going to buy these nowadays, but maybe we can give enough away that we remind people that, hey, we're not so bad, and one of these days down the road, you'll give us another go and you'll buy us again. I guess that's one reason. The other reason is maybe the beer has a life cycle within the warehouse.
It does.
And you got to get rid of it at some point, otherwise you just throw it away. And better to give it away than to throw it away. I think that's probably
better to use it as a marketing tool than just garbage.
Right, because at very least what you're doing is, and what I observed in the probably 20 minutes that we sat in this area having a drink, that probably 25% of the people said yes, which is an astronomically low number. When
for a freebie?
These people are drinking beer and they're being offered free beer and they're turning down free beer. Now, that's just a guess from what I saw, but there were many people that were accepting a free Bud Light. You know, sure, whatever. I just found it curious that that's what we've gotten to. The once greatest selling beer in the United States of America, they're now giving it away during events like the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix for goodwill and to get it on tables, I would assume. Because, I mean, if you're the marketer or if you're the distributor, you're taking photos of all of those Bud Lights on tables and not necessarily talking about the fact that they were given away, I would think. Just an observation during the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix.
We increased our market share. Yeah, it's easy to do when
you're giving it away. I was just fascinated, and I was one of them. They asked me if I wanted one, and I said, no, thanks. And then I immediately went up and bought a Busch Light. And I get it. That's all they had. I mean, they had some other funky stuff, but, you know.
Yeah, but that goes right back to what you were saying. It's like you turn down free to pay because.
I understand that Busch Light is a part of the greater family. It is the point.
Exactly.
It's not about not giving money to Anheuser-Busch at this point. A lot of people are drinking Mick Ultra now instead of Bud Light, and I understand why. I know that you're ultimately pushing money to the same parent organization. The point is the thing. We're going to make a point. Bud Light should be an example for all of those other woke DEI-type organizations out there. It's 12:23, just getting underway. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Defense Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm specializing in physical security consultation and active violence mitigation training. That is a mouthful. It's a way of saying this, that they can keep you safer. They can give you the tools where you can keep yourself safer. Their clients include schools, corporations, healthcare facilities, law firms, manufacturing facilities, corporate headquarters, entertainment venues, country music tours, and so much more. Cumulus Nashville, as a matter of fact, utilized this training about a year and a half ago. I sat through the training. I was so impressed. I told Brink Fiddler, I want to talk about you on the radio, and Brink said, A-OK, and I've been doing so ever since. I encourage you, if you're a decision maker at a school, at a corporation, at a healthcare facility, any place that people gather, call Brink Fiddler and allow him to customize a training seminar for your facility. Reach out today at 615-236-6484, 236-6484, or defensesystems.com, defensesystems.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 1228. Glad to have you with us this afternoon. Matt Murphy until 3. Brian Wilson in the drive, 3 o'clock until 7 o'clock. Information-fueled and opinion-driven News Talk Radio. Yes, Donald Trump has now officially coined a nickname for his former vice president. And I don't know that I understand it. Other than either is Trump trying to use kid language? Have you seen what he's calling Mike Pence?
I haven't.
He's calling him little, but with D's instead of T's. Lidl.
I guess is he trying to differentiate that from little Mark Rubio?
Well, that was LIL.
Oh, was it?
That was Lil Marco. Lil Marco. Lil Marco.
I think he's starting.
I'm wondering if Trump misspelled little to begin with. I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just asking questions, right? Like you misspell it to begin with, and then you go with it like you meant to it. Kofefi. Remember?
I've forgotten about that.
Like he fell asleep in the middle of a tweet. That's a conventional wisdom. is that that's the best conspiracy theory of that.
I'm a little disappointed that he's kind of losing some of the originality of these nicknames.
I mean, it's hard to keep coming up with them. I mean,
I would imagine so, but come on, man.
You got an entirely new slew, a cast of characters.
Don't start a whiteboard every day if you're not going to do it.
That's exactly right, Bell. By the way, the whiteboard today up and running. I'm proud of today's whiteboard. You can find it at Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Is he saying liberal? No, he's saying little. Liddle.
I think that's just his way of trying to make it different than little Marco. You know,
yeah, little. Anyway, that's his big thing. Yes, we'll get into the women's soccer match as well, which made me laugh, and I can't help it. It's not my fault that it made me this way. I love my country as much as anybody, and I'm not going to be told that I don't love my country because I laughed when the women's soccer team lost to Sweden. That was my reaction, and I didn't create that reaction. They did. And so if it was your reaction, don't let anyone tell you that you should be ashamed of that reaction because you didn't create that reaction. Megan Rapinoe created that reaction, and every other one. Maybe you can spend the time that you would have been practicing for your next match learning the lyrics to our national anthem. And maybe you won't have so many people thinking it's amusing next time around that you lost your soccer match. And I don't guess we'll get to see whether your pay will amount to the men because you don't have any more matches to play. And that's what I think about that.
Which means you have no more revenue to generate.
06 or 0467 says, look up the definition of little. Okay. It's 4D chess, everybody. It's not that, yeah. Look, I'm a Trump supporter. All of that, but everything's not 4D chess with the guy. 615-737-9986. A lot of you commenting on the Bud Light story, and we will delve into those comments in a moment. It's 12:31 on Super Talk. If your AC is not working as it should, you need to call my man Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. He can come out and he can help. He has had qualified crews with him for years now. That's so important because he knows that his reputation relies on those individuals that come out to your home that assist you in determining what's wrong with your AC right now and what can be done to fix it. And if you're trying to make the decision to repair or replace your system, you need someone like Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling to make a well-informed decision for you. Most companies will push you to buying a new system because they make more money that way. Well, Jeff Eddy's going to give you all of your options and help you understand which one's going to last you, which one's going to give you a year or 2 years, and which one's going to give you another 20 years. Give yourself peace of mind. The best way to head off costly repairs is to go ahead and maintenance that unit, and that you can do any time of the year. So if you don't feel like your unit is running as it should, you could stave off a complete failure by calling Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling today. They're the ones that I trust in my home, and I believe you can trust them in yours. Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling, a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an Elite Pro partner with Ream. EfficientHVAC.net, 615-784-4424, 784-4424. Efficient Heating and Cooling. You know, another thing about this little controversy, by the way, it's the Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7, WTN 1236. Glad you're with us. Hello, welcome to your Monday afternoon. Hope you're all doing well. Tell a friend or a neighbor about the show. Would us 5 minutes or the full 3 hours? We certainly appreciate you. So he's used this before, and he's now recycling his nicknames. He used this for Bob Corker, the little with the apostrophe. He puts a little apostrophe at the end, showing you that it's like little. Well, you know what? He ought to do. Well, I'm not telling Trump how to do stuff, but LIDL would make more sense. Little, with the apostrophe. He has referred to Bob Corker in the past as little. He has also referred to the pencil neck geek, Adam Schiff, as little. And now Mike Pence joins that number. So it is intentional. No, I am not going to refer to the Urban Dictionary explanation as to what little means, because have you seen it?
Yes.
I don't think that's what he means.
I don't think so either. I don't think he
and
reads the Urban
I
Dictionary.
don't think that's a good, because several of you have done this on the super text. I don't think it's a good look for you to defend Trump to use the word little by going, "Oh, he means the Urban Dictionary meaning." Well, that's not a good look for anybody. So,
I don't think Trump reads the Urban Dictionary.
Chris says nothing else going on. Well, you tell me what you want to talk about, Chris, and I'm happy to talk about it for the next 3 hours. I'll show you. Yes, there's a lot. There's not actually, I take that back. You know what? I try to be honest with you. We're going to make today entertaining, regardless of what's going on in the news. But let me be honest. It is a summertime. It is an August Monday, middle of summer. School's getting back. We got lots to talk about and lots to get to. But it is a slow news day. Now, we got weather coming in, which might liven up the news day just a little bit. But frankly, at this stage in the proceedings, I'm going to tell you, the presidential race is boring me. There is no contest on the Republican side of things. Really, the only contest is whether or not Donald Trump makes it to the primaries with regard to the Department of Justice, Joe Biden's Department of Justice insistence that they destroy him a la a third world country or a tin-horn banana republic prior to his having the ability to get to the polls and the voters go into the polls and determine whether or not they vote for him or not. So
and it is going to take at least one more indictment to ensure his nomination.
That's what he said over the weekend.
Yeah,
he said, it's pretty funny. One more indictment, one more, and we're there. We're going to do it. One more indictment, and they might as well just call off the primary. We're going to get there. He said that in Montgomery. He also said he was going to 3-lane I-65 if he were president of the United States, which I think should get him elected for that reason alone. To which the leftist mayor of the city of Birmingham said, we don't need 3 lanes for traffic congestion going down to the beach during the summertime months through Alabama because a lot of people use that corridor. He said we need high-speed rail, which is a laughable suggestion. Bobby is next. First up today in Nashville. Hey, Bobby, how are you?
Doing well.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, Bobby. You're on the radio. What's on your mind?
Yeah, could President Trump be trying to reference to G. Gordon Liddy?
Why would that make any sense?
Well, G. Gordon Liddy was involved in all that scam of, was it Watergate?
Yes. He
Being
was.
a traitor of sorts?
Yes, G. Gordon Liddy was one of the plumbers that orchestrated the Watergate break-in. He eventually served time in jail for that. And if memory serves me correctly, he got out of jail and subsequently went on to have a fairly successful talk radio career.
Yes, he did. Mike Pence could be jumping in and doing something great. You never know. It just come to my mind about G. Gordon Liddy.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby, I don't want to cast aspersions. I don't want to pour cold water on your idea, but I think the words just sound the same. I don't think he's referencing G. Gordon Liddy in any fashion, especially considering that he has already called Bob Corker and Adam Schiff little. I think he's just playing off the word little. I don't know why he doesn't just use the word little. He decided to use little instead. What Donald Trump is ultimately doing, the amount of people going to Google and searching the word LIDDLE is leading them to the Urban Dictionary version of that word, which is not something that I needed to know or see.
Certainly not radio friendly.
And it's certainly, I can't even read it to you on the radio. It has to do with performing a particular act upside down, which
is about as far as you can go with that explanation.
Well, yeah, sure. So there's that. I have nothing else to say about little other than Donald Trump has a way with his nicknames, and he's called his political foes little before. And
I think a lot of times he just tries to come up with stuff off the cuff because he's responding to something real quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's sitting down and plotting this out. So he just uses, that's kind of a go-to one for him.
Yeah, I've long said this, and I'm not casting aspersions when I say it. There are some Trump supporters that want to believe, and so they choose to believe, that everything he's done is planned out and he's thinking 14 steps ahead of you. There are many of you that believe that Donald Trump is and always will be Bobby Fischer when it comes to politics. He's the Bobby Fischer of politics. He's thinking 14 moves ahead, and there's never a way for you to get ahead of him because he's always going to be one step ahead of you. And there are some of you that if you are aware of his, I'm not talking about the Trump haters. I'm talking about Trump supporters, that you believe that he just falls into these circumstances without really realizing how he got there. The Forrest Gump, if you will, of politics, where he just happens to find himself on the better side of circumstances. I don't think Donald Trump is Forrest Gump on the spectrum, and I don't think he's Bobby Fischer on the spectrum. I think he's somewhere in the middle. I think some of it's planned. I think a lot of it is like Bell said. It's just happenstance where he falls into, Low Energy Jeb was the best nickname that he ever gave anybody. Because it was so appropriate. Jeb was just sitting around, please clap. It was just like as if he were owed the nomination somehow.
It's my turn. I guess we'll do a campaign.
It was awful. Yeah, that's what it was. So we'll see who will be graced with a nickname before the. Do you think the real question is? Do you think Donald Trump will show up for the debate? I don't. I'm of two minds on this because politically, it doesn't really do him any good to stand on stage with any of these other people and giving them airtime. At the same time, Donald Trump's ego would dictate that he's either going to do that or he's going to do a counter event. He's not going to do nothing. I promise you that. It will either be he's on stage with the rest of them or he has some sort of counter event going on at the same time while everyone else is on the stage. But it remains to be seen whether I've not heard of Tim Scott's nickname, if he has one, or Vivek Ramaswamy's nickname, if he has one, or Nikki Haley's. I can only imagine what he's saying about Chris Christie. I can imagine that he has nicknames for Chris Christie. But I do not believe. I don't know. I go back and forth on whether he'll be there or not. But that's the real question. That's happening later on this month. All right, speaking of the Biden administration, and we were in a roundabout way, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm, who is no friend of the United States of America and no friend of the energy sector, released 50 million barrels of oil from the nation's Strategic Petroleum Reserve. After holding conversations with, wait for it, well, was she holding conversations with our energy providers? Was she holding conversations with, the heads of Chevron or Exxon or whatnot? No. She held conversations with China in advance of releasing 50 million barrels of oil from the SPR. This news story coming out of National Review this morning, internal calendars from the Department of Energy were obtained by Americans for Public Trust and broken by Fox News Digital Friday afternoon. Granholm spoke with the Chinese National Energy Administration Chairman Zhang, I can't pronounce it, and I'm not going to try and butcher it. Zhang, we'll call him. Administrator Zhang and Granholm spoke on at least two prior occasions in 2021, on November 19th and November 21st, after which the White House released millions of barrels of oil from its strategic reserve. Why are we getting checkoff with the Chinese regarding the releasing of oil in the Biden administration? Pray tell. President Joe Biden at the time said, I brought together other nations to contribute to the solution. India, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and the United Kingdom have agreed to release additional oil from their reserves. And China may do more as well. This coordinated action will help us deal with the lack of supply, which will in turn help ease prices. By the way, he's never really eased prices. They went down from their historic highs in his administration, but they still are well beyond what they were during the Trump administration, as most of us well know. Gasoline it does not have to be as high as it is. We were energy independent for the first time in American history 4 or 5 years ago. And now look at us. The miracle of fracking gave us that ability. And now look at us. The regulations are back. The onerous regulations are back against the energy companies. The Biden administration demonstrates time and again that they would prefer to scare the bejesus out of people regarding, quote-unquote, climate change than actually solving our energy problems in the United States of America. It's an unspoken issue. We don't talk about it enough on this show, that the Biden administration seems more concerned about how the Chinese feel about things than they do what the price at the pump is for you and me. China was expected to simultaneously release a portion of its stockpile into the market. It did the opposite and expanded its energy reserves over the intervening months. In other words, while we were dumping our SPR on the open market, China was withholding more, mitigating what we were doing to alleviate the price at the pump, and at the same time, building up their strategic reserves. Somebody's playing the long game, and somebody's an idiot. And I think I know who's who. I mean, think about that for a moment. The Biden administration had you believe that the calamity created by our government that was COVID-19, let's just reset this for a moment. The Chinese created this calamity that fell on us like a ton of bricks called COVID-19. Anyone that still thinks that this was some happenstance bat meat market problem, you got another thing coming.
I do science.
We were partially funding the ridiculous gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Virology Lab. And while there's no solid evidence either way, whether it was intentionally or unintentionally released from the lab, only a fool would believe that it came from anywhere else. I said it, only a fool, given the evidence that we have now. China allowed it to happen or caused it to happen, then lied about it while the rest of the world, while they allowed, if China had been honest on this, we might have contained the deal, but they weren't, in no way had any intention of being honest. And the suggestion has been made, and your humble host kind of believes it, that maybe the Chinese understood the long-term ramifications of releasing a virus on the world like this one. Or once it happened to get released from the Wuhan Virology Lab, they immediately recognized it as an opportunity. An opportunity to what? To destroy Trump, to hurt him leading to the next election cycle, to create this economic disaster that became COVID-19. And in doing so, harm our energy sector to the point that if the theory holds true, they got another president that's in bed with China elected as a result. And he didn't even have to get out of the basement to do it. And for their efforts, what do they get? They get a weaker United States of America on the energy sector front. They get a weaker United States of America so that the Chinese can filter their fentanyl through our southern borders, further weakening the United States of America. Does anyone else not see this? And in the meantime, our energy department is working in concert with the Chinese saying, yes, We will release more of our strategic petroleum reserves. Yes, we will further weaken our energy sector while you build yours up. And the Chinese on the phone with them, oh, yeah, we'll get to it. Oh, yeah, we'll release our oil, too. We want to be a part of the solution, not the problem. And then they do the opposite. According to Representative McMorris, before telling the American people of their plans to undermine our energy security by draining SPR at record rates for political purposes before the midterm elections, Secretary Granholm reportedly first secretly consulted with the communist Chinese. Since then, the Department of Energy, under her leadership, has sold millions of barrels of oil from our SPR to China. China, the world's biggest polluter. If they really believed about what the garbage that they talk about climate change, would they be doing this? China's playing the long game. We're playing the dumb game, a la Joe Biden. 12:52. By the way, Chris, hope that was a pivot to important news for you. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Have you bought a safe from the Safe House? Are you thinking about getting a bigger safe from the Safe House? You know, here's what Mark at the Safe House told me when I first met him. He said, when you buy a safe, buy bigger than you think you will need, because I promise you, you will fill that safe, especially if it's a gun safe. It's Matt Murphy for the Safe House, and I've been there, and I've seen them. They have the best selection of safes, not just in Nashville. Now, I don't pretend that I've been to every safe shop across the United States of America or the world, but I'll say this, that if you've got the best selection of safes, over 650 in stock in their warehouse and in their showroom, if you've got that many safes, then you've got the best selection in the Southeast. And if you've got the best selection in the Southeast of gun safes, I can promise you, you've got the best selection in the world. That's the way that it goes, right? And they've got all brands, shapes, and sizes. Browning, of course, with the rebates potentially. I don't know if the rebates are still available now in August or not. I have to ask Mark about that. I'll report back to you ASAP. But he's got great prices on Fort Knox, on Liberty, and, of course, on Browning, amongst other brands. Go see him at the Safe House if you're looking for a jewelry safe. They've got one of those as well. They've got biometric safes for the bedside table. Just stop by and say hello. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Nashville Safe House, NashvilleSafehouse.com, or on 4th Avenue South, across from the City Cemetery in Nashville.
ABC News. I'm Daria Albinger. A federal judge has already denied their request for a 3-day delay. So now former President Trump's legal team is back on the clock with a 5 p.m. deadline.
Trump's lawyers must respond and make their case after the special counsel's request for a protective order. Smith's team pointing to Trump's social media use and arguing Trump might use it to disclose evidence or even intimidate witnesses in the January 6th case. Specifically pointing the judge to a post Trump made last week, writing, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." Trump's team has called that political speech.
ABC's Jay O'Brien in Washington. Another sentencing in the death of George Floyd.
It'll be 57 more months in prison, minus 340 days time served for former Minneapolis police officer Tu Tao. Judge Peter Cahill rejecting Tao's testimony that he was simply serving as a human traffic cone in May of 2020 as fellow former officer Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd's neck for 9.5 minutes and died.
As an experienced senior officer, was in the best position to save George Floyd.
Judge Cahill could have rendered less time, especially since Tao was already serving 3.5 years in prison on a federal conviction for violating George Floyd's civil rights. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
The U.S. is on alert after last week's joint military exercises between Russia and China not far from the Alaskan coast. The Pentagon confirming reconnaissance aircraft and warships were sent to the area.
The Chinese and Russian warships did stay in international waters, and the Pentagon is downplaying any threat from these exercises, but having those joint patrols was most certainly provocative, highlighting the growing cooperation between those world powers at a time of increasing tension with the U.S. over Taiwan and, of course, the war in Ukraine.
ABC's Martha Raddatz. Stocks are on the rise today. The Dow up more than 300 points. You're listening to ABC News.
All right, you heard about the nasty storms, and obviously we'll keep an eye on all of those. Let me tell you about some better news. Let me tell you about some more comforting news, that we have great local businesses around town that are providing fabulous services for you and your family, and one of those, Holly and David and Savory Spice. 2 locations to serve you. One's in L&L Market, that's on Charlotte Pike in Nashville. The other's in Franklin, just off the square next to Gray's Pharmacy. I became aware of Savory Spice, went into the shop, met Holly, met David. What great groups of people. And they can walk you through the differences in what they do in their spice shop and just the other, routine stores that you get your spices from, your grocery stores and whatnot. You're really up in your spice game. And they have blends that I've not found anywhere else in markets around Middle Tennessee. I encourage you to spend your money locally, and more important than that, up your food game by upping your spice game, and you up your spice game through Savory Spice. They've got incredible blends to provide, great spices for various meals that you might be preparing, and if you're a novice in the kitchen, they can help you out in that regard too, because they pre-package certain blends to go, and they tell you from start to finish exactly what to do in the kitchen with those blends. Savory Spice. There are 2 locations, Franklin and in Nashville. Tell them I sent you to Savory Spice. Here we are. Here we go. Hour number 2, Matt Murphy Show, 105. Good afternoon and welcome. Dry right now in Middle Tennessee, although there's some nasty storms moving through northern Alabama and southern Tennessee, just to the line there. I was looking at the radars. We were coming back on air, concerned with some of the nastiness that might be. There's really nothing in our if you're to the south of us, you're experiencing some of that. If you're on the Alabama-Tennessee line, that's where the nasty weather is right now. But we're keeping a watch for you all afternoon long. I mean, I'm talking like Lawrenceburg, headed toward Pulaski, areas like Etheridge, you're about to get popped there. Mount Pleasant just got a little bit. Columbia, just a little south of Columbia. But really, any points north of Columbia, you're not finding any rain right now on the radar. There has already been some that moved through, obviously, earlier today. So we're monitoring the situation for you all afternoon long. We'll keep you up to date as to whether or not you need to be concerned about any inclement weather on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can communicate 615-737-9986. That's the Super Text line, of course. A lot of activity there. No activity so far, save one caller on the phone lines, and I always appreciate turning a monologue into a dialogue. If we bring up a subject matter that is of your liking, you're invited to be a part of the conversation. 615-737-99. I'm doing the phone number, Bell. What did you say?
Or if there's something you want to complain about, he'll take that call too in a heartbeat.
True. Yeah, you go to the front of the line on complainers. 615-737-9986. Sorry, I yelled at you. Didn't mean to.
Hurt my feelings.
Wow. Yeah, it's my job. Part of my job. All right, so facts don't care about your feelings. Is that as the saying goes? A lot of you responded to the Bud Light conversation that we had over the weekend, and I want to talk to you about what I did on Saturday real quick, and then we'll get over to the Joe Biden play to reset the argument regarding Hunter Biden's business dealings. I'll give you an update on that. So I mentioned, and once again, I'm not casting aspersions. I was just curious as to what the genesis of what I witnessed was. And we went to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, the wife and I and a few friends, and I witnessed this where there was a temporary bar set up by a local Broadway-based bar, and they were giving away Bud Lights. They would walk around to tables. Hey, do you want a beer here? And they gave you a Bud Light if you chose to take a Bud Light. A lot of people didn't. I would say considerably fewer than half of the people asked took the beer. Now, a lot of people did take the beer too. I'm not saying one way or the other whether you should have been one person or the next. I said no, thank you. I'm good. Appreciate you, but not today. And my question was, well, I wonder where all of this originated from. And I have to believe that it originated from the distributor, where they're trying to clean out their warehouses of Bud Light, and they would prefer to use it as a good marketing tool as opposed to just dumping it out, which is what it seems they were doing on Sunday. On Saturday, the wife and I made our way to Hendersonville up in Sumner County to the beautiful Hendersonville Library to be a part of the See You at the Library event, sponsored by Brave Books, a great publishing house. Got a chance to see the owner of Brave Books. Also got a chance to meet Kirk Cameron, who was there. Riley Gaines, local product from Gallatin Way, was there as well. And they read a few books to the children, assembled. All the parents were gathered together. The mayor was there, and there were a lot of local dignitaries. Johnny Garrett, Representative Garrett, was there. William Lamberth. I talked to William about getting him back on the show. He said he's more than willing to swing by the show. Tim Jones, who's with the Sumner County Commission, was there as well. So a lot of great folks. And the people that put it on, what a great, wonderful event. I mean, there were hundreds of people gathered together. I got a chance to meet, and one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this up, it was, of course, great to see Kirk Cameron. It was great to see Riley Gaines. They read a couple of books, and then they had to boogie as they were getting down to Madison County. They did 3 separate See You at the Library events. They jumped on a plane. I don't know where the plane was. It had to be close. It could not have been in Nashville because they jumped on a plane and got to Madison County. They probably left our event at 9:20, and they were set to be down there at 10 o'clock. It was a quick jump. And then they were going out to Texas for an afternoon event. But I had an opportunity to meet, my soft spot with dogs. love dogs. I love dogs more than I love people. I love dogs more than I love people because they deserve it. And a woman by the name of Bethany Van Meter and her husband were there, and they have written a book. They brought their dog, River, and they've written a book about River called I See With My Heart, a true story about a dog with no eyes. Bethany and her husband adopted River, who was named River when they got him, and they kept his name. And they now take him around to libraries and schools and whatnot, or really any gathering place where people ask them to bring River, and they read the book and talk to young people about River and his life experience. The book is, here it is, and I just want to promote it because I think it's a wonderful thing, called I See With My Heart, Bethany Van Meter, illustrated by John Whitworth, who's a big friend of the show as well. We're going to have Bethany and John on at some point because I want them to tell their own story, but it was such a sweet, sweet story. So River was found on the side of the road in Texas, and a good-hearted American got them into their automobile, got them to a veterinarian where it was determined he was found wandering all by himself in Texas. And when he was found, it was determined at the vet that he had such infection and such sickness in his eyes that they had to remove his eyes. And so River's now blind, but, well, there you go. There's the title of the book, I See With My Heart. One of the sweetest, most good-natured dogs. And I watched River as he was interacting with the people in this room, and what he's doing with his sense of smell and sense of and his sense of hearing is just incredible. But it was very touching, very heartwarming. And they're good people in this world, man. Let me tell you something. And if you adopt a visually impaired dog, you are good people.
Well, and that's one of the good things about the fact that their sight is a secondary sense for them. I mean, you never want to see a blind animal, but it's not like if they lost their sense of smell, that would be absolutely devastating. But losing their sense of sight is not good, but it's not as bad. Well,
I asked Bethany how it went in their house, and I forget her husband's name. He was there as well, and they were talking about, it can become a challenge only in that, she learns, or River learns his area. And so he remembers, if I go around this corner where stuff should be, and if things get moved around, he bonks into a lot of things, but you just got to take it as it comes, right? I mean, that's going to happen. But,
yeah, my cat lost his left eye for the exact same reason, just due to an infection.
Yeah, but what a great animal, what a great little story that Bethany tells in the book. And if you didn't catch it on the Super Talk TV, just go back and watch Super Talk TV. I held it up for you, so just wanted to give her a shout out. And what a great event. Larry's like, I'm in tears over River. This dog is the sweetest animal on planet Earth. And it gives me an opportunity to do this. And I don't do it very often. Look, I get if a family wants a specific breed of dog. I understand that. I do not begrudge dog breeders. I think it's important that we maintain the purebred nature of a lot of types of animals. But I would say that I beg of you, if you're looking for a dog for your family, even if you want a specific type of dog, adopt, go to shelters, don't buy the animal from a breeder. There's no need for it. Now, once again, I don't begrudge you breeders. I'm not trying to take business away from you. You'll be fine. If you're doing it the right way, you'll be fine. But I'm telling you, the amount of animals that get killed every single day, if we understood it and knew about it and broadcast it and talked about it and didn't whistle past the graveyard and pretend it wasn't happening, I think there are enough dog lovers in this country that we would really do something about this. But I beg of you, you can find, if you're looking for a Schnauzer, you can find a Schnauzer rescue. If you're looking for a Weimaraner, you can find a Weimaraner rescue. They're not going to be purebred, and the paperwork never did a damn thing regarding the love that a dog can bring into your home. So please, if you're looking to bring a dog, you can find a dog right for you. And it is just as much a crapshoot regarding temperament at a dog breeder as it is at a shelter. If you're worried about temperament, you can find better-natured or better-tempered dogs, or those that have, we all know, and I'm not I'm not saying, I'm just saying we all know the breeds that have more of a propensity for snapping or biting or that kind of thing. And if that's your concern, you can work that out at a shelter as well. Just please get a shelter dog.
Yeah.
I mean,
now, what's the gentleman's name that did the illustrations?
John Whitworth.
Is that the guy that used to work at the Chicago Tribune that we've interviewed?
It is not. That would be Scott Stannis.
Oh, okay.
That's my good buddy over at the Trib, although I think he knew Stannis. But, yeah, he did all of these illustrations are fabulous. He was on site Saturday morning, and while the kids were sitting watching River and watching Kirk Cameron and Riley Gaines, he did illustrations on these big pieces of paper. I mean, just like Sharpie illustrations just off, and was handing them out to the kids. It was great.
So he was doing it in view. He was illustrating the scene the kids were watching in view of the kids.
Mm-hmm. Kind of real
That's
time.
kind of cool.
Oh, see, this is very sad. That's the sad part of the book. See, that's where I was found roaming the streets of Texas. When I saved, look, you can see his little ribs there. It's very sad. But they couldn't save his eyes because he had a little infection in his eyes. Anyway, it's called I See With My Heart, the story of River, a dog with no eyes, available at a bookstore near you. Okay, the goalposts, as predicted by me, continue to be moved by Joe Biden and the sycophants in the mainstream media. And the media has determined that they are committed to defending the current first family, no matter what facts come out about Hunter Biden's entanglements with foreign governments. Rarely have we seen something like this, where newsrooms have committed so much effort into protecting men, as the National Review put it, with so little character. And it's true. 4 years ago, the New York Times and other media outlets would have salivated over the opportunity to investigate allegations that the president and his son were operating an influence peddling operation out of the White House involving foreign nationals. Can you imagine for a moment the editors at every major newsroom across the United States of America talking to their people about whether or not the president's son had leveraged the family name in return for huge amounts of cash? And whether just imagine this for a moment, that the president's son, we're talking the Trump administration now, the president of the United States, his son, had used his last name and admitted it. It was all about the Biden brand, or in this case, it was all about the Trump brand. Oh, yes, we hit up the nation of China. We hit up Ukraine and Russia and more to leverage that family name in return for huge amounts of money. Can you imagine the investigations into how much money it was, who knew and when they knew it? How much the president got, if any? Did he get a cut of the action himself? Did the president himself speak to any of these foreign agents and entanglements? Did the president himself conduct or coordinate a quid pro quo with well-heeled foreign interests? Do you think they would be so concerned about whether he was president or not when any of this happened, just as they seem to be with then vice president? Well, he wasn't president. He was vice president. A level of excuse making. I mean, can you imagine being that so much at heel to the Biden administration that you do anything they tell you to do? Sit, Rover, stay. Good boy. Good media. Good media. That's me petting the media.
Mr. Wise Guy over here.
Oh, but that was the Trump deal, right? I can make an apples to apples comparison on this thing, and I defy you to tell me that every mainstream media outlet in the United States of America, in the world, would not be all over this, including Fox News, hell, including Newsmax, and some other right-of-center news organizations, and rightly so. It is an absolute disaster. A coordinated effort designed to enrich the Biden family through using Joe Biden's influence in American government. You're using the taxpayer-paying citizens of the United States of America in that way, and the mainstream media just ignores it. Now, obviously, this would be a big deal. had it been Donald Trump. But it's not Donald Trump. It's Joe Biden. There's a Democrat in the Oval Office. And for organizations like the New York Times, as noted in National Review, they do a great opinion piece. Beckett Adams does it in National Review. I encourage you to go read it. He says now that there's a Democrat in office, for major media, most especially the New York Times, there's no value to the Biden family corruption story. I mean, forget the fact that it alleges that Joe Biden conspired with his son to rake in mountains of money from foreign entities in return for preferred policies toward their countries. That's the accusation, that they bribed these organizations and in return they gave preferential treatment to those countries. Now, I told you the goalposts were moving, and the goalposts continue to move. There was a subtle shift last week, and over the weekend there was another shift, and it is important that you remember these shifts. And I'm going to help detail those to you in just a moment. We've gone from I never, ever, 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 never, never, ever spoke to any of my family about any of this. That was Joe Biden's position for years on this matter. And then last week, he said, well, I was never involved in my son's business. It went from I never, ever, 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 ever spoke to my son about any of this to, well, I wasn't involved. But now we have a new defense. And the New York Times offered it over the weekend. I'll tell you what that is in just a moment. It's 122, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Well, hello, friends. Matt Murphy with you, and it's as simple as this. There are some companies you want to do business with and some companies you don't want to do business with, but sometimes you do business with those companies you don't want to do business with because you think you have to. And your cell phone is probably that kind of thing, right? Where you don't necessarily want to give these big guys the money that you give them on a monthly basis, but you kind of have to because where else are you going to get the same quality coverage? You're not going to want to change your phone or your phone number, right? Well, what if I told you that Patriot Mobile gives you the ability to spend your money with a company that thinks like you, that isn't woke like them, and you don't have to lose that cell phone number. You don't have to lose your phone, and you don't have to lose the quality service that you currently have. And the price point is very appealing. It's Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, offering dependable nationwide coverage on all major networks. You get the same coverage you've been accustomed to, minus the leftist propaganda. That's refreshing, right? And this doesn't take much. Friends, switching is so easy. You'll never see a disruption. All you need to do to start the process is call one of their U.S.-based customer service agents. Talk to them about making the switch that so many others have made to Patriot Mobile. Right now, you go online to patriotmobile.com/Murphy, patriotmobile.com/Murphy, that's my name, or offer the offer code Murphy when you call. 878-PATRIOT, 878-PATRIOT. Free activation with the offer code. Switching is so easy, and you stand up for a few of our good American values. It's Patriot Mobile. Hey, coming up in about 10 minutes or so, our good buddy Steve Abramowitz with the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast has a few things to say about homeschoolers. It's a story that I was not familiar with. This is one of the reasons that I promote the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. I like Steve. I like what he does down there in Franklin and what he does with mcview.us. And he made me aware of a story that I was unaware of. I said, Steve, get on here and let's talk about it. And he said, okay. So we'll talk about that amongst other things. That's just after the bottom of the hour. We call the bottom of the hour 1:30, or we call 1:30 the bottom of the hour because I'm old and I remember analog clocks. That said, you can get involved with the show, 615-737-9986. You got it? Okay, I was about to send it to you. 615-737-9986. So, the new standard for the New York Times. So, now, remember, last week, after an inconvenient week for the Biden White House, another fact emerged suggesting that Joe Biden had indeed been involved with his son's business dealings, his overseas business dealings, contrary to what he himself has stated during the past 4 years, since 2019 when he entered the presidential race. So you'll recall that Joe Biden, and hat tip once again to the Review. National Review does a great job. I'm recalling their article here. That Joe Biden declared during the 2020 election, quote, I have never discussed with my son or my brother or with anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. Once again, there's no wiggle room in that statement. I'm going to reread it. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or with anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. He then went on to say, and what I will do is the same thing we did in our administration. There will be an absolute wall between personal and private business interests and the government. There wasn't any hint of scandal at all when we were there. And I'm going to propose the same type of strict rules. That's why I've never talked with my son or my brother or anyone else, even distant family, about their business interests, period. During that same year, Joe Biden, during a campaign event in Iowa, insisted again that he had never spoken to his son about his business interest. Quote, I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He's violating every basic norm of a president. You should be looking at Trump, he said. Everybody looked at allegations that I spoke about Hunter with his overseas business activities. Everybody looked at it, and there was nothing there. Ask the right questions, an indignant Joe Biden said. White House press secretary last week moved the goalposts. After 4 years of steadfastly saying, I've never, ever, ever spoken to my son about any of this, Karine Jean-Pierre said, the answer remains the same. The president was never in business with his son. Wait a minute. I mean, they do this, they gaslight the American people. Well, the president's always said he was never in business with his son. No, the president said he's never spoken to his son or his brother or any other distant cousin about any of this. So it was cute, right? We shifted the goalposts. We moved it a little bit. The initial claim was I never talked to anybody. Now, I was never in business with my son. Now, courtesy of the New York Times over the weekend, there's a new talking point. The New York Times ran to the president's aid over the weekend by saying the paper of record. Actually, this wasn't even the weekend. This was it was Friday, I guess. Quote, this is the quote from the New York Times, because I know you don't read this garbage. It's clap. It has long been known that the elder Mr. Biden at times interacted with his son's business partners. What are we supposed to do with this? They don't care that they're hypocrites. They don't care that they're lying. It has not been long known. You have not long reported it. As a matter of fact, for 4 years, you repeated the presidential garbage that was, I've never, ever spoken to my son about any of this. And now you're It's long been known that the elder Mr. Biden at times interacted with his son's business partners. It's comical if it did not hurt the country so much. Comical. Joe Biden, for years, has insisted that he never spoke about any of this. Now, courtesy of the New York Times, the new talking point is this is old news. This is classic Bill Clinton. Lie about it. I mean, the Clinton family has done this for years. The Obamas, really Democrats, get away with this because they've got sycophants in the mainstream media that carry their water, to which you lie. You get caught on something, you lie. I've never had sexual relations with that woman, Ms. Lewinsky. You just lie about it. And then by the time the information comes out that gets you caught, you know what you say? This is old news. This is old news. What are y'all talking about this for? Well, it's years old. They've been doing it for years. Sickening. 132, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is of great relief to me. And now that I've tweaked my knee a little bit, I need to go see the Dr. Gill Center and will. And they have knee relief for me. Did you know that they help with knees? Oh, it's true. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief can do really anything that moves on your person, to include your knee. If you suffer from knee pain, if it's painful to walk or perform day-to-day activities, great news. They can relieve your knee pain fast and easily with no downtime and no surgery, offering new non-surgical treatment for knee pain, even if it's arthritis or an old injury. What's living with knee pain costing you? Well, it might cost me a pickleball tournament against Dan Mandis. I'm not allowing that to happen. I'm getting with the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. You can qualify for a $39 consultation today and get back to a pain-free life. Call 615-882-4838, 615-882-4838. 38 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. The problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Welcome in, whether you're watching on Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Hello. Welcome. Come on in and see my Hawaiian shirt and the whiteboard of the day. We appreciate you. You can also stream us via a variety of different platforms. You can find us anywhere on the intraweb. Just look up Supertalk 99.7 WTN. You can also find us right there on your radio dial at 99.7 on the FM dial. And we thank you. If you're watching or listening on any of those platforms, we thank you for that.
I think that might have been a bad idea for a whiteboard.
Why is that?
Because now people are going to want to get it back down to 0.
That might be true. Should I tell everyone what the whiteboard says? I think that's only fair.
Yeah.
The whiteboard says this show has now worked 4 days without being threatened with an ass kicking. You know, they have those in the workplace. You know, we've gone 6 days without an accident. Woohoo!
289 days with no accidents.
I mean, I think the goal should be to get that number as big as possible, not as small as possible, Bell. Although I think some would disagree with that concept. Hopefully, Steve Abramovich wants that number to be as big as possible. He operates the Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast. It's always a good opportunity to speak with Steve about a variety of matters. And he brought something up over the weekend that I was unaware of and wanted to get him on to talk about that. Hey, Steve, how's it going?
Hey there, Mr. Murph. How are you?
I'm doing well. You holding down the fort in Franklin and beyond?
Just writing shows, trying to be entertaining. You know how it goes.
You do a great job at it, and we'll talk more about that coming up in a moment. There's actually something coming up in your world that I want to promote because I think it's pretty cool. Tell me a little about HB 252. I'm not familiar with this. You made me familiar with this via a tweet or an X post or whatever we're calling them now on social media. Tell me about it.
Don't give away our trade secrets. Because I know that invitation to that barbecue got lost in the mail, but I'm not bitter. Have you ever had Rep. Jody Barrett from D69 Tennessee on?
I have. We've talked to Jody from time to time.
Yeah, so you can talk to him more about it. He passed a bill that went into effect April 28, 2023, not that long ago. The other month that starts with an A. And that was HB 252, so great one. Basically said, bottom line is a homeschool is a school conducted or directed by a parent or parents. So he defined homeschool, and basically it allowed where you didn't have to show that the immunizations that are on the schedule that have been proven to not be so helpful or safe or effective didn't have to be done. But unbeknownst to anybody until now, as kids are getting ready to go back to school, there's not a law, which Jody passed. There's a rule that the Tennessee Department of Education passed that said, oh, yes, you do. And there's a person at the top of the Tennessee government who signs off on the administrative branch of government, like the Department of Education, that had to say, yeah, I agree, or else it wouldn't be in effect. So as of right now, church-related schools, so if you have the old exemption because of your religious beliefs or whatnot, you may not be able to go to school next month. And we got problems in this state with schools, as you're probably aware, with the TCAPs and all the rest. And so this bothers me quite a bit. But you've been talking about it all morning, and I agree with you. Republicans have issues all over the place.
All right, so I'm a little confused. So there was a law passed by the General Assembly, sponsored by. I'm just recapping because I'm trying to make sure I heard everything correctly. So Jody Barrett sponsors a bill. The General Assembly passes the bill, and I assume the governor signed it.
Yeah.
Okay, and this would make homeschool kids exempt for any sort of public school immunization requirements, basically.
Reporting. If they want to go get it, fine, that's between them and their doctor. But in terms of reporting it to the education department, you don't have to follow the same rules as a public school because you're not a public school.
Well, right. You're not, and your kids aren't going to. I mean, the entire, I don't want to back up and remind people, and we can agree or disagree or whatever, but the premise behind requiring that you show that you've been immunized is to make sure that you don't have, a resurgence of the measles or the mumps or whatever it might be, right? You don't want kids who...
Yeah, let me read it for you so it's clear.
Yeah.
This is This is TCA 49-6-3050A2A and A3. Make it clear that homeschools where parents are affiliated with and where students are enrolled in a church-related school, are exempt from this section. What the Department of Education is saying is, nah.
So what are they using as a way? I mean, are they saying that they still require that you show the immunization records?
Pretty much.
Well, I'm a little confused. At what point are they saying that they require that they're requiring that if your student signs up for homeschooling that they present to the Department of Education these immunizations?
The Tennessee DOE has some interpretive discretion and could have opted to preserve the right and privacy of homeschool parents in the rulemaking process. Instead, they opted to take an approach that both stretches the boundaries of the legal definition of homeschool and obfuscates the legislative intent behind the passage of HB 252. That's from my friend Gary Humble at his Tennessee stand. So that leads to the point that the Tennessee Department of Energy exists under the executive branch of our state government. Who do you suppose is the chief executive of that branch of government in the state of Tennessee? Yep, Governor Bill Lee.
Steve Abramowitz, our guest, he's with Mill Creek View, Tennessee. We're going over HB 252, which I was unaware of, and how the Department of Education seems to be ignoring its passage in their requirements. And I'm just trying to figure out how this functionally works. So if I'm a homeschool, and I don't know, Steve, because I don't have kids, right? So I'm completely oblivious to all of this. So you have to talk to me like I'm kind of a third grader here. But if I homeschool my kids in the state of Tennessee, there still has to be some sort of coordination about curriculum and whatnot with the Tennessee Board of Education, right?
Yeah, I
okay.
suppose. The rule is that Tennessee did that went into effect on August 15th, next week, that still requires homeschool students registered under church-related school umbrella, and that's well defined in terms of private schools, to submit to the same immunization requirements of public schools. See Rule 0520, 07, 02, 05, 3E, and on page 81 of the document. That is where the rulemaking process comes in that goes against what are the laws. So it's rules versus laws. There's Jody Barrett's law, signed by the legislature and signed by the governor, and then there's the rules, also signed by that person, which have the force of law that are administrative and executive departments to enforce those laws. The problem is the rules are left up to the interpretation of the administrative attorneys and may not necessarily represent the legislative intent of the laws that were passed. Again, that's from TennesseeStands.org.
So at what point, and this is what I'm trying to figure out, at what point of contact between the homeschool situation and the Department of Education are they demanding this documentation that this bill clearly says they don't have the right to demand? Do you know?
Well, I know. So today is August 7th. August 15th, that DOE rule, which would apparently moot the law, goes into effect. And in Tennessee, we have this, very interesting thing where the sessions for Congress or the Assembly only go from January 1st until April. That's why there's going to be a special session. So there's a potential that they could use the special session to reiterate that a law trumps a rule, since a law is made by lawmakers who we vote for, and there's democracy for you, which the left keeps yelling and screaming about. And I don't know why Gloria Johnson is attacking Jody Barrett all the time, but that's our democracy. And the rule, which would have to be clarified in Congress, which means they won't be able to do that until January if it's not in the special session, which it's kind of lucky we have this special session, even though nobody wants it, because they think it's all about gun laws, but they can really do anything they need to. And then they could basically put the Tennessee Department of Education in their place and say, no, laws are supreme, voted on by the elected officials of every county in the state, versus rules by an unelected official that the, let's face it, lame duck governor, he's not running for re-election, had to approve as well. So it's a weird catch-22, but time is of the essence because kids are going back to school this week. And those immunization records are going to be effective August 15th if nothing is done.
Yeah, and I'm getting a few people who are writing in, Steve, saying, well, 0636 says, we homeschooled our son last year, and they had to have a vaccine card. And Mike, who's they? I mean, would that be the Board of Education, the school system? Maybe I'm just I'm oblivious how all of this works. I'm confused where the point of contact is. And is this happening, or is this the Board of Education saying that they have determined that the law, doesn't change anything about their requirements that vaccine cards get presented? Is that what you're saying, Steve?
Pretty much. Jody's Law, I'm just calling it that.
Yeah, sure.
I shouldn't. That's disrespectful. Assemblyman Barrett's, or whatever they're called up there, law basically clarified that if you're a homeschooler, you do not have to do this. The rule now is trumping that, saying, yeah, you still do. Now, who does that go to? Obviously, the Department of Health, probably the Department of Education, and the school itself, the public school. They're going to have their health department. They're going to say, well, if you want to be enrolled in school, you have to have all of these schedule of 78 vaccines and whatever the case may be. So that's getting into the weeds a little bit. But I think what Mr. Barrett tried to do was prevent that for religious reasons, for privacy reasons, for all good reasons. But the Tennessee Department of Education is saying, yeah, forget that. You got to do it.
And that's just for homeschool students.
Yeah, which is clarified as I can read the whole thing if you want to, but there's nursery school, kindergarten, preschool, child care facility does not include a.
What is the and I'm not. Once again, Steve, I want to clarify that Steve and I know each other well. I'm not pushing back on Steve. I'm just trying to understand all of this.
Well, it's very confusing.
What would happen? What is to prevent the homeschool? The parents of the homeschool kids to tell the Board of Education to pound sand? They've got a law on their side, so no, you're not getting any vaccine requirements from me. What would the Board of Education, what could they do?
Well, I mean, they could discredit the curriculum so as if you missed a year of school. I mean, they can get as mean as they want to. Who knows? Hopefully not at all. Hopefully they would just say, okay, that's fine. But here's what Mr. Barrett said in his memo. An umbrella program offered by church related schools, such as Home Life Academy or Gateway Christian Schools, are not supervising parent teachers or administering standardized achievement tests to homeschool students. These parents are not associated with said church-related schools simply because they report their grades and attendance to these umbrella programs, so they may someday have a transcript to send to a college somewhere. Their children do not attend classes in any facility provided by these programs, nor do they receive instruction from teachers employed by these programs. While they may be technically enrolled in a church-related school or paper only, they are educated completely independently of that organization by a parent or parents or a legal guardian or guardians for their own children.
What I don't understand, though, and I'm not trying to oversimplify the issue, and I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but if I've got HB2, and I'm hearing from parents who say that they used to send in vaccine cards, and I'm also hearing from parents who say they've never sent in vaccine cards. So I'm just giving you a lay of the land as to what I'm getting on background. But my point is, if I've got HB 252 behind me, the Board of Education can go pound sand, man. I mean, the rule is in no.
I don't think parents have to deal with this whatsoever. I mean, watch like Tennessee stands want to know what these departments that are not elected do, and this is another example of exactly that. They've done this with other things as well. Department of Transportation. We know what Penny Schwinn was doing with the curriculum. There's a lot of unelected officials passing rules. And most people, I believe, are rule followers. They don't want to say, I'm not in compliance with this, and now my kid's education is at risk. If you're a seventh grader, and all of a sudden Tennessee gets draconian about this and says, hey, you didn't comply, you have to repeat that grade, which they just did with third graders, right? Then, you put yourself at risk. Or you are forced to say, okay, fine, here's my immunization records. We complied with what we shouldn't have. Then we're getting into a whole nother sticky wicket. But I just think it's a privacy issue myself.
No, I agree with you. And, I don't want to assume that people understand this about where I am at on the Board of Education and public education. I mean, if public education had their way, there would be no homeschooling.
Right.
Right. I mean, they don't like the idea that there is another alternative. They want to create an atmosphere by which there's no competition and they have all control over your kids. Hold on for a second, Steve. I want to finish this up on the other side. Steve Abramowitz with us, Mill Creek View, Tennessee. And I promise you, I'm not trying to be obstinate when I'm asking all these questions. I just genuinely don't understand how the relationship between public education and homeschool works. I've never had to understand that because I don't have any kids. It is 615-737-9986. Steve Abramowitz is here to explain it to us. And maybe Jody Barrett. I've put out a call to 152 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Tennessee Men's Clinic is the first to provide men's-only services to the guys in the listening audience and all throughout Middle Tennessee. And what do we mean by that? I mean, men are different than women. I mean, we used to use that as just pretty much common knowledge, right? We knew that men and women are different, although that knowledge seems to be less and less as the days and weeks and months go by. But that said, at Tennessee Men's Clinic, they recognize that the numbers inside of your body, gentlemen, ought to be something specific and that you ignore them, and they want to get you aware of them so they can help you. If you're feeling lethargic, low energy, there might be reasons for that. It might involve tea. It might involve some other issues. Whatever it involves, you need to find out so you can develop a plan of action, a plan for success, and that's what they want to do at Tennessee Men's Clinic. Now, I know we talk about bedroom activities when we talk about Tennessee Men's Clinic quite a bit. You've heard the commercials, and there's a reason for that because it manifests itself in that way, and you don't want to be that guy. Half the guys in America are going to deal with that problem at some time or another. Well, why not get ahead of it at the Tennessee Men's Clinic? Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com or schedule an appointment today. There's 2 locations to serve you. One's in Nashville, the other in Franklin, Cool Springs. Give a call at 615-208-9090. 208-9090. A simple appointment, a little blood work, and we can be well on our way to energy recovery. Thank you to the Tennessee Men's Clinic.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, weather aware here on Super Talk. Right now, a large portion of Middle Tennessee in a tornado watch until 6 p.m. tonight. Nashville, along with everything east of it, including Cumberland, Clay, Fentress, Macon, Putnam, Sumner, Warren, Wilson, Grundy, and Coffee counties affected in that watch, along with a few more as well. Complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. School's back in session. Back to school life has begun for many families in Tennessee, such as it did today in Rutherford and Cheatham counties. And they're bringing in some new school safety policies with the new year. Rutherford County schools will now require clear bags. No backpacks or purses will be allowed unless those items go into a clear bag. In Cheatham County, any visitor wishing to enter the building will have to show a form of identification and answer a few questions. And if you want to pick your child up, you'll have to wait outside. And if you want to drop something off for them or have lunch with them, the front office will have to know in advance. And along with that, in Cheatham County, students will not be allowed to carry their backpacks from class to class, but required to keep them in their lockers. Donald Trump's lawyers required to respond by 5 p.m. today to the special counsel's request for a protective order, limiting what the former president would be allowed to share publicly about the case involving his alleged attempts to overthrow the 2020 election results. Trump has blasted the request on social media, and his legal team has sought to delay their deadline to respond. Catherine Falders tells us that attempt has been ineffective.
Special counsel Jack Smith, of course, has made the case that this needs to be in place because Trump has a tendency to attack witnesses, to attack judges, to attack lawyers, for example, involved in this case. So the reality of this is that the deadline for Trump's team to respond is 5 p.m. today. And this is after they tried to delay this deadline. The judge over the weekend denied that and said the Trump legal team does have to respond again by close of business today. So we'll see the arguments that they make in their filing.
In the nation's second largest city, preparing to come to a halt this week when city workers plan to walk off the job and join other industries that are striking. Alex Stone.
If there is no deal before it begins for 24 hours on Tuesday, 11,000 LA City workers will walk off the job, including sanitation workers, mechanics, traffic officers, and engineers whose union is negotiating a new contract, and they claim the city has not been bargaining in good faith. David Green represents a union.
Unfortunately, we have some out-of-touch city administrators.
The one-day strike comes as Hollywood writers and actors and hotel workers are also on prolonged strikes here.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Kraft Body Scan came to Nashville several months ago, and more folks are finding out about the incredible nature of what they do on a daily basis. Let me tell you about it. I'd like for you to get to Kraft Body Scan and to find out through health consultation exactly what they can do for you to give you peace of mind and comfort. Ideally, what they're going to find is absolutely nothing, and they'll hand you peace of mind in terms of where your body, how your body's acting, what's going on inside of your body through CT scan. They offer that peace of mind, health empowerment, lifelong longevity, easy for me to say. They are a tool for people just like you to take control control of your health through early detection. I was just there last week at their official quote-unquote grand opening, although they've been doing body scans for listeners like you for months now. I did a full body scan, and I'm invested in this technology. I love it, absolutely love it. And right now, for $149, a couple can get a heart and lung scan at Kraft Body Scan. Find out more about that low price point. That's a very special going on right now. Go to Kraft with a C, craftbodyscan.com, or give them a call and schedule an appointment today. 615-436-1000, 436-1000. This is incredible brand new technology that can look inside your body and detect things before you feel it. craftbodyscan.com. We have one more hour to go before we hand off to The Drive and Brian Wilson. It's the Matt Murphy Show this Monday, August 7th. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being with us. A little rain coming into our area. There's some rain to the south of us. If you're in Middle Tennessee and Nashville properly, there's rain going down on the Tennessee-Alabama line and whatnot. We're monitoring that situation. We'll keep you up to date with everything you need to know about. Talking with Steve Abramowitz for a few more moments regarding this HB 252, which I became aware of when Steve made a post about it at the Mill Creek View Twitter feed at Mill Creek View. You can also find him at mcview.us. Discussing homeschooling broadly and more specifically the requirement that the Tennessee Board of Education has that homeschoolers present immunization paperwork. And I'm looking now, someone sent me this, Steve, during the break, that some of the things that you have to do in order to meet the requirements of homeschooling is that you're required to attach proof of your child's immunizations or a medical religious exemption to your letter of intent. This was obviously what HB 252 was designed to stop, yet according to Steve, if I'm hearing you correctly, the Tennessee Board of Education still has an expectation that you're going to be submitting that paperwork for your homeschooled student. Is that accurate, Steve?
Yep. That's it. So my big beef is that there's a huge difference now between laws and rules. Rules technically do have this full faith of what, I got to phrase that correctly because it's getting all into legalese, and I am not a lawyer. They don't even like very many lawyers, although I do like my lawyers. The point is that I believe that what the legislature passed, exempting homeschool kids from this rule, should be honored. The rule makers, unelected, are saying, no, we are supreme, and you must now still honor, just like always, this exemption. And I don't think that should be the case. And there's really no way that I can see, Mr. Barrett will know better, that they can interject and beef that up, protect that from the Tennessee Board of Education or Department of Education. Literally, the law is, I'm looking at the Tennessee General Assembly, it says, as enacted, removes the requirement that a parent teacher of a homeschool student provide proof of the student's immunization and receipt of health service or examinations required by law generally for children in the state to the local education agency. So that was your question. Where does it go? The local education agency. Jody said, no, you don't have to do that anymore. And it was voted on, and it was agreed to, and that's the law. The rule makers, unelected, appointed, said, yeah, you still got to do it by next week.
And beyond the fact that there's obviously a law that was put into place to supersede the requirement from years gone by, is this head-scratching question. Why does the Tennessee Board of Education care? If I'm homeschooling my child, then I'm not putting any other children at risk of potential infection due to a lack of immunization, which was the entire point that the Board of Education and public school more broadly made with regard to requiring immunization paperwork. They want to make sure that you're not putting others at risk. Okay, whatever. We could debate that till the cows come home, but the point is that's been their rule. But if I'm at home or if I'm in a church group or church setting where we may or may not have religious viewpoints that make us exempt from these types of requirements, it doesn't matter because I'm not putting publicly educated children at risk at that stage. So why do they care whether I'm immunized or not?
it's just power. It reminds me of during the COVID days when if you sat home as a mobile executive and used Zoom all day, they still said you had to get the vaccine, you had to wear a mask, you had to go grocery shopping, in a full hazmat suit, whatever they wanted to say. And now in hindsight, 2.5 years later, we realize some of that was probably overkill and not necessary, but boy, did they feel good making the rules about it. And some of them got paid a lot of money to do it too. We're reading about California and the mask deal that was made. And so that is my problem with it, is that why would unelected administrators get to dictate to our children and their parents what they have to do with their medical privacy? Because, when you think about it, handing it over to the school, that's not a hospital, right? That's why does your medical privacy have to be there in the first place, including the public school kids who must attend? Why must they do that? I understand they're trying to say, well, if you got chicken pox, or you're not measles or mumps, that's a problem. But this is different. And so I don't know the answer to that, but I do know.
I can see the argument the other way, but this makes zero sense to me what you're talking about, because you not only don't have a valid reason in my estimation, but you further have a law on the side of those that are homeschooling that says, I don't have to give you this information. And so I'm not, I mean, if I was a parent of a homeschooler at this point, I wouldn't give the information until I got clarity from the General Assembly. And I did hear back from Representative Barrett. He's out of town today, but he says that he's going to get back with us on this issue sometime this week, Steve. So I'm so glad you brought the issue to our attention just a week out from so many parents who are homeschooling having to turn in some documentation or paperwork. And we'll try to get an answer from Representative Barrett soon. What else you got working over at Mill Creek View? Anything good?
I'm going to have Joe Kent on tomorrow. That's kind of a special deal because I'm from Washington State. He got kind of election frauded out of his seat in an R+5, and it was won by a Marxist. So that's going to be fantastic. Actually, we're going to be talking about this. I got Ben Cunningham coming on from Nashville Tea Party. I really want to hear what he said. And I just had one of the winners of Nashville's race on, Alice Rowley. So still having a bunch of clicks and people looking at that because now she matters more than she did a week ago. She is the only Republican in the race for Nashville, and maybe Nashville's only hope. Who knows?
Shh. We're not saying the R word anymore, Steve. We're trying to.
All right, it's a nonpartisan.
It's
just a good woman.
Yeah, she's a good person. She's an outsider. Who has new ideas for the fate of Nashville, not one of these insiders like O'Connell. I've been telling all of my friends who listen to Alice on the show who have communicated, hey, she got into a runoff. Awesome. She's a Republican in a run. Like, no, stop calling her a Republican. We need some of these squishy middle of the roaders to go vote for her, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you'd make a very good lawyer the way you said that. You'd be my second lawyer that I like. But for the most part, yes, it is. The point, I guess, is that Tennessee, from all over the universe now, is looked at as one of the most Republican states in the country, all right? Florida, Texas kind of gives it a run for its money. I get that. Missouri, whatever. But there are some forces inside here that really are doing their darndest to take it a different direction. And, purple is one thing, but blue is another. And I saw this in California and then after that, Washington for 20 years. I don't want that to happen. When I see things like this, the Department of Education doing what they're doing, which is not Republican in values. I see a Nashville mayor's race in a county that's next to Shelby, one of the highest crime in the state, run by, let's face it, the same thing as some of the other big cities in the country, from Minnesota to San Francisco. I'd rather that not happen. So I'm just trying to create a show that forewarns everybody, like, look, at least you knew it could happen. Now it did. What did you do about it when the time came? And some people do nothing. Guys like you invite guests on to talk about it, just like me. So let's just keeping our eye on these guys and gals so they don't turn us into Memphis East.
Amen. Sorry. Amen. Steve Abramowitz, Mill Creek View. Go find him at mcview.us, mcview.us. You can find the podcast there. Lots of great podcasts. None, all pale in comparison to yours truly. But you know what? I might be a Might be a little bit biased on that, Steve. I don't know. Thank you.
Well, you keep doing what you're doing because you got 5 days a week and commercial breaks and all that fun stuff. So just rock and roll, because without you and Dan and the other group of folks, now Mr. Hand, where would we be? So keep going.
Thank you, brother. There's Steve Abramowitz, mcview.us, making us aware of this homeschool situation. I wanted to get to several of your calls. Going to move on to another subject after the break, but many of you wanted to comment on this, and I admit I don't have a tremendous amount of awareness on it, simply because I don't live in that world. I try to live in that world as much as I can, but without kids, it's difficult to keep up. I'm just amazed that more had not been done on this previously. Why I can understand why the Board of Education or the school system, public education, would say, hey, we need to know what your vaccination status is, because you're going to be in a classroom with a bunch of other kids. Their health and safety matters as much as your kids' health and safety. And while you might have a difference of opinion as to what to do regarding immunizations and shots and whatnot, we need to know so that we can reflect the status of the room and the status of the school and the status of the system accurately to other parents who also have decisions to be made. I get that. That makes sense to me. What I don't get is requiring that kids who will never grace the door of a public school to do the same. Like, what's your justification there? Maybe some of you can help me. Danielle is next up in Nashville. Danielle, thanks for your call. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I wanted to let you know to understand better that not all homeschooling is created equal. There is the umbrella school. You can go to a tutorial and at home. There's public school where you're registered with the county, but it's public school at home. And maybe they should have to follow the public school requirements, but not private homeschool. And to answer your question about why hasn't this been addressed, or why are we just now looking at this, some changes get rescheduled. They get kicked down the road when less people might be paying attention. I will speak to everyone. Please hear me loud and clear. Even if you do not want to homeschool right now, I encourage you to defend the right to do it. For the sake of individual freedom, you want choices. You want the choice to public school at home. You want the choice. You want to do private school or private homeschool, an umbrella. Defend your right to choose. The thing is, they don't have, they said about, Home Life Academy and some of the other homeschools that are private umbrellas, something to the effect of, well, they don't have to report except for grades. Well, yes, you do. You do have to report your grades, but you also must list all of your curriculum that you plan to use for that school year, and they highly, strongly encourage your counseling. Please call your elementary counselor, call your high school counselor, make sure you're on track. It's called freedom. The private school, the private umbrella. Some homeschool is public, some homeschool, it's just at home strictly. They don't have the ability to control it if it's church-related or it's like Home Life Academy. And I'll tell you what parents do. They're led by their faith. And if you hear me now and you're thinking about homeschooling and you're out there doing it right now, your faith will lead you. And there is no one anywhere on the face of God's green earth that cares more about the quality of the education that your child gets than you. You care more than anybody on this earth, and God has equipped you with what you need to do it.
Danielle, well spoken. I will take a mild amount of umbrage with the last thing that you said, because sadly there are far too many parents, and I've met some of them, who think that they can hand off their kids and the educational responsibility of their kids to the public education system, and they don't have to think about it anymore. I wish that were not so, but it is. And I would like to say that it's not the majority. It's not even close to the majority, and I don't know that that's true. But there are many people in America today that have kids, and they think when their kid reaches the age of whatever, 5 or 6, and they hand them off to the public education system, that they are not responsible for the education of their children. That becomes the responsibility of the state. And that's not true. I did have this person write in, Terry write in, and I'm not arguing with you, Terry. I just disagree with the sentiment that some homeschool situations have neighbors, kids, and other kids under the same roof. And I guess the insinuation is that's why you need the immunization requirements. But for me, I would say, well, so what? It's no longer the responsibility of the Board of Education or the public education system whatsoever. It then becomes, if I homeschool my kids, and I don't do it in my own home, I do it in someone else's home, it is not the Board of Education's responsibility to determine what kids are and are not vaccinated at that point. It's mine. I have intentionally done my work to eliminate the Board of Education from the maximum amount of this process as possible, to include knowledge about the immunization of my children. That's me. Robbie is next in Franklin. Hello, Robbie. How are you?
Hello, pretty good.
What's
I
up?
just wanted to point out that a lot of the homeschool programs, the umbrella programs like with private schools, a lot of the homeschool students can participate in extracurricular activities, football, baseball, basketball, homecomings, dances, whatever else. So they are mixing with the school population. They're not completely isolated. And a lot of homeschool programs do have an organizational entity, I guess you could say, where, you may have 15 or 20 homeschool students in a subdivision or an area, and they all meet 2 days a week, and they have a classroom. So there is a population element where they are mixing. You've got unvaccinated kids mixing with vaccinated kids. How do you deal with that?
Well, if they're all homeschooled, that's their. This is what I would say. You're right. Obviously,
They
know
don't
this.
just stay at home, though.
Let me just finish. Let me tell you how you're right, Robbie, and I'll let you talk. So, if you're participating, here's the easy answer. If you're participating in public education-based group events like homecoming, athletics, whatever it might be, then that precludes your exemption from the vaccination requirements. In other words, you have to present vaccination if you want to do that. I mean, that's an easy one. Okay. So, but if you're not, and you don't involve yourself with any public education type events, and you're simply gathering with other students, I would say that it is then up to the parents to determine their knowledge about immunization status amongst that group. It's no longer up to the government. That would be my answer. I mean, look, I could be open for other ideas, but I just don't think it's the government's role at that point to determine who can and can't get together, because where would that stop? Why wouldn't the government do the same thing for Sunday school for kids?
Well, you're not participating in the school system. That's a separate private group. That's not governed by anything. State, county.
Right, which
federal.
is my point. That right now, the point is the Board of Education is saying that they still need the requirements. And I'm saying if you're homeschooling, it becomes your responsibility as a parent to determine what the vaccination status is of your situation, no longer the government's. That's my play.
I mean, you still have standardized testing you have to go and participate in. You don't take the ACT at home. You've got to go places. You've got to go out to the schools. You've got to participate in standardized testing. So it's homeschooling is not strictly isolated to the home. You still have to be part of the state school system, and you have to report grades, and you have to do all of that. So you're not completely isolated.
Well, but couldn't you make that same argument about just living in society? I mean, that argument could be extended to forced vaccinations because you're a part of Oh, look, and now we're starting to sound like COVID-19, Robbie. That's a joke. I'm being flip with that comment, but I'm not coming after you on your logic. I'm telling you to make a lot of sense. I'm very late. It's 2:24. For most of us, your home is your biggest one-time purchase, and maybe you've bought 1 or 2 or 3 homes, but if I told you that there was an issue with that purchase and that literally it could be crumbling beneath you, what would you say? Well, you'd want to do something about it. You wouldn't whistle past that graveyard. That's where USS comes in. USS stands for United Structural Systems, and since 1994, they have been the go-to foundation repair and waterproofing company in Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. Over 25,000 satisfied customers. Customers just like you, perhaps. So if you have foundation issues or if you've noticed some of the telltale signs, and you can find all of them at USSTN.com. By the way, if you don't know what all of the signs are, go to USSTN.com and they will tell you. But some of those, for example, waterproofing. Well, obviously, if there's moisture in your basement or crawl space, if you smell musty odors in your basement or crawl space, that is a sign that water's getting in, and water will never stop until it destroys that foundation. Foundation repair more broadly, there's some signs to that too. Go to USSTN.com for more information, USSTN.com, and call the best. Called USS. Homeowners simply trust USS. They've been keeping homes dry and stable since 1994. They guarantee their best. USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com or 615-488-7855. 488-7855.
Monitoring a tornado watch around portions of Tennessee, a massive fight on a dock in Alabama, crime in Tennessee at the Nashville Public Library, and a new scam alert. Those stories and more coming up 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I want to talk about the fight now. I won't, but I do.
Ooh, you've already seen the story.
Have you seen the video?
Oh, yeah.
I know you have. Mac Morey will go over it, and then we will talk about it after the bottom of the hour.
Yes.
On the Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There's video of you getting threatened?
There's not a video of, not to my knowledge, although they might have had cameras. Who knows? I don't know. The guy had a camera.
For no reason.
The guy had a camera. Maybe he was taking some video of it last Thursday night. One way or the other, we'll discuss that after the news coming up in just a couple of minutes. A lot of you are asking the question, and I was kind of holding off on it to encapsulate this story. So The bottom line is there was a law passed by the General Assembly, 252, which I've not read. Jody Barrett's going to come on with us later on in the week. That was designed to eliminate the immunization requirements for homeschool kids. Now, there are some who are saying, well, what about these homeschool kids that involve themselves in activities at the school? Athletics, prom, school dances, extracurricular type stuff, or whatever. Well, if your vaccines are good and if your kids have been vaccinated, then I don't understand what issue you have with the unvaccinated kids. It's their risk. It's their choice, not your choice. So I'm a little bit confused. I mean,
just put the mask on.
By the logic of people who insist that unvaccinated kids get vaccinated, you're suggesting that the vaccine doesn't work very well because the only kids that are at risk are the kids that are unvaccinated, not the vaccinated.
Just wear the mask.
It makes no sense. Why do I feel like we've debated this the last 4 years?
Because we have.
Oh, because we have. In the meantime, we've got this from the newsroom. It's 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
"31 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 89 degrees and a windy, stormy day in Nashville. Tornado watch in effect in Tennessee. It's now minimized to a smaller portion of the state, now affecting just 12 counties instead of 22. Those counties: Cumberland, DeKalb, Overton, Van Buren, Cannon, Fentress, Pickett, Warren, Coffee, Grundy, Putnam, and White counties. That watch in effect until 6 p.m. Got a full weather forecast in 2 minutes. Charges pending after a massive fight broke out on a riverfront dock in Montgomery, Alabama. Here's Derek Dennis.
Cell phone video going viral of a violent, racially charged brawl that broke out on a riverfront dock in Montgomery, Alabama. Witnesses say it started when a black dock worker was attacked by a white passenger on a pontoon boat, and then other white passengers were seen joining the fray. That's when more witnesses, both black and white, were seen jumping to the black dock worker's defense. Montgomery's mayor says police acted swiftly to detain reckless individuals for attacking a man who was doing his job. Charges are pending. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
Right now in Nashville, a man was arrested on Friday after being accused of touching a woman without her consent. This happened at the Nashville Public Library. 34-year-old Richard Walker shared food with this woman earlier in the day, but they had never met officially prior to that. Camera footage shows Walker approaching the woman while she was sitting down and reading. He then grabbed her butt and began to grope her. Walker denied these accusations despite the clear footage. He was charged with sexual battery. And a new scam alert involving a payment app used by millions. Derek Dennis gives us those details.
It was creepy.
Creepy for Rachel Adler of San Francisco, who told our station KGO that a man pretending to be a Bank of America fraud prevention officer called her claiming there had been money siphoned out of her account. The phony caller assured Adler he would stop the theft, but first she had to Zelle the same amount of money back to herself and then ignore a Bank of America fraud alert. Adler's loss
$5,500.
Experts say it's happening all over and banks know it, but once money is approved and sent and a fraud alert is ignored, little can be done to retrieve it.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, folks, Matt Murphy for PhD Weight Loss. I am just at 25 pounds, just under 25 pounds in my weight loss journey. Could not be happier about it. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt today in honor of Dan Mandis, and I could not wear this Hawaiian shirt 2 weeks ago. I couldn't do it because I was too heavy. And now I've lost the weight, so new clothes are becoming available to me in my clothery and how about my closet because of PhD Weight Loss. They're doctor and dietitian developed, individually delivered. You consult with a counselor every single week. Rachel is my consultant. Absolutely love this program. Love the fact that it makes losing weight so easy. The average guy loses 3 to 5 pounds per week. The average woman 2 to 3 pounds per week. Here's the great thing. They will set up a schedule where they know roughly what you're going to lose on a week-to-week basis. And if you don't get within 5 pounds of your target weight by the end of your program, PhD will continue to coach you for free until you do. That is the PhD guarantee. Go to myphdweightloss.com and do like I did and begin losing the weight that I've lost. Almost 25 pounds down and losing every day. Thank you to PhD Weight Loss. Go to myphdweightloss.com. McGill's world-famous Glock store wants to see you, and I want you to get there. I'm going in for training. How about you? The Shoot 270 memberships are the best shooting deals in Nashville. It's one thing to own a gun, and obviously they want you to buy from the world-famous Glock store. They have incredible guns in selection, and long and short in nature. Plus, they have great deals on Glocks, as you might expect, considering the name of the shop, right? So go by and see the retail outlet, 35,000 square feet. But there's also this component. You need to learn how to use it. And in doing so, you can utilize some of the trainers at the world-famous Glock store and their Shoot 270 memberships. Basically, for the cost of a few range sessions, you can train every day for a year with an instructor. You can have up to 4 individuals per trainer. They're highly experienced, certified firearms instructors. I've worked with them, and I can tell you they improved my accuracy in 2 sessions astronomically. Gave me the opportunity to shoot with better accuracy. I absolutely love it, and my training continues. Call today at 615-680-6565 or go to shoot270.com to book a session. That's shoot270.com or go over to the world-famous Glock store at glockstore.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We continue. It is 2:39. We'll have a chance to preview in a couple of minutes what Brian Wilson will be discussing this afternoon. We'll talk with Brian coming up in just a couple of moments. We're going to do that with a fair amount of regularity as we make way to the drive from 3 until 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Boy, oh boy, Mitch McConnell, did you hear him get booed? I got some audio for you in that regard. Mitch McConnell was booed lustily. He actually encountered a chant of retire, which we discussed last week. Has it not come time to at least discuss the idea of having an end cap age requirement in public service, where if you're over a certain age, considering Joe Biden, it's not just Democrats, right? I mean, there are a lot of Democrats. I mean, Dianne Feinstein in California, Joe Biden, the president of the United States, seems well beyond the winter season of his public service. But I would include, I don't think Governor Kay Ivey in Alabama's running the show. And she's well up there. I mean, I use her as an example. Mitch McConnell, I mean, he fell out last week or kind of lost himself last week, and we talked about that on the show. And now he's meeting chance of retire, as he should. We'll get into that in just a moment. Mac Morey, what do you make? Have you seen this? You've seen the video. So I have a little backstory, and I have some particular interest because I lived in Montgomery for about 3 years. Yeah. I remember when they were planning the building of that nice little dock system. You know, they got a boat down there, and I know you covered some of this in the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've got a boat down there. It's an old paddle boat that they use for, excursions, like a little hour-long river excursions or 2-hour-long river excursions. I think you can go and have dinner on the boat, and people can rent the boat out. Well, the boat has a dedicated dock to it, it's my understanding.
Yeah, that's as far as I know, right? Yeah.
Yes, and these idiots on this pontoon boat decided they're going to park their boat where the big city-owned vessel has to go. So the city worker is trying to explain to... I mean, you feel like alcohol was involved in this situation, Maury?
It sounds...
No. Come on.
Feel like a little alcohol might have been involved?
I think some alcohol was involved.
I mean, naturally, when it's a bunch of white guys hitting on a black guy, immediately you're going to hear cries of racism and foul. I have no idea whether the color of anybody's skin has anything to do with this, except that we saw a bunch of white boys whooping up on a black guy who was a city employee who was trying to tell them they needed to move their pontoon boat because the big paddle boat was coming back.
And have it be known, these white guys are probably my age, 20s, right? Early 20s, maybe?
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, and this middle-aged black man, I mean, in his 50s probably, right? It looks like.
Yeah, that's safe.
Yeah, okay.
That's safe.
Just setting the scene.
And I don't know what words were exchanged, but no words merit what they did, which was jump this guy. And there's like 4 or 5 of them beating crap out of him on the dock, to the point that I saw one video. Did you see the guy that jumped in the water?
Yeah.
To try to get...
Yo, I'm swimming there. This guy needs help.
This dude needs my help. This guy jumps in the water, starts swimming over to him, swims all the way over, gets on the dock. The aftermath, by the time the boat was actually able to dock, people were ready to destroy these people.
Mm.
And they did. I mean, one guy... The folding chair?
Yes.
It was like a scene out of a WWE wrestling event. This guy takes a folding chair and starts hitting anybody within the... I mean, he's running all over, finding anybody and everybody he can to whack with a folding chair.
Black belt in folded chair jiu-jitsu, for sure.
Oh, so good. So, you got to get arrested. I don't understand, and what I'm a little confused... And maybe it's just the alcohol. What turns this from a misunderstanding, even an annoyed well, why does he get that part? Well, because it's a city-owned pier and it's a city-owned boat, and this is a dedicated pier for that boat, so get your butt out of here. Okay. Then you get on your pontoon and you leave.
Yeah, and you say, oh, that stinks. Okay.
Yeah, you can be mad about it. You can dog cuss them, flip them off as you're going. Whatever.
Whatever.
But, I mean, for this to rise to the level of a gang melee...
It really was, too. And I mean, by the end of it, 20-ish people for sure.
No doubt. No question.
Maybe more on the dock. And I mean, all throwing fists, bodies on the ground, sliding in and out of the water.
I mean, I don't mean to laugh. It's a serious situation, but if you ever find yourself in the middle of a gang melee like this, you need to really examine what you're doing with your life.
What am I doing? Why am I here?
Yeah, your behaviors might be suspect.
You know what I mean? I understand coming to the defense of someone who might be involved in something like this, but the sad reality is once you get in there, you don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. Now, I'm glad that people came to the defense of the dock worker because he didn't deserve all of this. Now, he was directing them to do what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just crazy.
And I mean, I'm sure he has that interaction multiple times a day. Hey, sorry guys, can't park here. You know, it's a frustrating thing that he's got to do. And then they leave. And then this time, yeah.
He has a lot of people yelling at him on a regular basis because he's telling them bad news.
Yeah, that's the job.
You can't be here, but that's a part of the job description. Okay, I want an immediate reaction from both of you, and I just want the genuine deal,
1800.
the real article.
1800.
Without regard for whether or not you should have reacted in this way or not. I'm not asking you, second reflection, third reflection, maybe not, maybe. What was your reaction when you saw or heard that the U.S. women's soccer team had lost their match with Sweden?
Did not give a rat's ass.
One way or the other.
Couldn't care less.
So you had no reaction?
No.
So you nothing. You're a blank slate.
I was perfectly fine with them losing it.
You heard it and your life had no, wait, you're fine with them losing.
I honestly had, when I heard the news, I went, who cares?
And that would be the same if they had won, just to be clear for you, Bell, right?
Say that again?
If they had won, you'd probably have the
Would
same.
you have reacted the same way?
Yeah, I would have been whatever.
Just not caring.
Don't care.
There's the illustrious executive producer of the Matt Murphy Show, ladies and gentlemen, Bell K, always ready to take a passionate stand on the issues of the day.
I don't care.
Matt Morey, how did you react?
I had been keeping up with their tournament and with their, lackluster performance is honestly the most generous way I could say it. So honestly, my reaction was serves them right the way they had been acting. I had heard more about their pregame outfits. I had heard more about the post-game pictures with fans and the laughter rather than the seriousness that the team needed to take in that tournament. And it was just a matter of time.
Mac, how many goals has Rapahoe scored this season?
Who's Rapahoe?
Whatever her name is. I can't remember. That's how little I care. What's her name?
Oh, my God. If that's not a name for a woman in the hip-hop,
that's what
that's got to be.
I'm Lil Rapahoe.
How many?
Lil Rapahoe.
No, how many goals is she?
0.
And what color's her hair?
I think it's still purple.
Yeah.
I think it was blue.
Oh, she changed it to blue.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's
for
just
Blue Lives Matter.
That's just how uninteresting that sport is. Is nobody cares because it's all about what they can turn it into in terms of divisiveness.
Well, I think some people care about soccer. I'm not diminishing that some people. Soccer is more popular in the United States of America than it has ever been, and I don't turn matters of opinion into matters of fact. So if you like soccer or whatever, go for it. That's on you. But I love my country more than I hate soccer. I've long said this. So if you're wearing the colors of the United States of America, I have a tendency to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care for the Olympics, but I find myself rooting for Americans in the Olympic Games.
Heck yeah.
I don't care for soccer, but I can find myself rooting for the American women or the American men if they don't give me an active reason not to, which they did. So I contend to you that it is not my fault that I laughed out loud when I heard that they had lost. It's not my fault because I'm a guy that you could win over if you just act like a decent American. You could win over. All you got to do is learn the words to the national anthem. All you got to do is stand there and respect the country. I don't feel bad for a second thinking it's hilarious that these women got the boot. And well, I guess, and did you see what Rapinoe said? She was like, well, the best thing we did was equal
Arapaho.
pay or whatever the hell, whatever she. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
Well, and to me, I'm sort of like you. If you give me a reason to become invested, I get a little bit invested. But if you give me a reason to disinvest myself, I'm just not going to give a care one way or the other. And her trivial little life impacts me in no way, shape, or form. So sorry for your loss. I don't give a care. I just don't care.
Well, I contend that it's not my fault that I thought it was funny. It's a spontaneous and natural reaction, which was created by them, the team. So ladies, I suggest you spend your newfound free time learning the words to your country's national anthem and developing a bit of gratitude for the blessings and freedoms that we enjoy here in the United States of America.
Or also maybe you can win enough that your portion of the business can generate enough revenue to justify giving you the same salaries as the people who do generate revenue.
Which is how all of that is supposed to work to begin with. Amen. It's 2:50. We'll talk with Brian Wilson coming up next, see what's happening on the drive right after this. Winding down our portion of the broadcast day on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's the Matt Murphy Show. Happy that you joined us. Hope you stick around for the one and only Brian Wilson. He's coming up right at the top of the hour, just after, I should say, at 3 o'clock with The Drive. Hello, BW. How are you?
Hey, it's good to be with you again. I love these little crosstalks. And I, by the way, I had no reaction to the women's soccer thing. None whatsoever. Now, there was a time when that was deeply important to me as a soccer dad, but those days have passed. And, I think it was a great way for, what is it, Rapinoe? I can't ever remember how you say her name, but I think it was a nice that, what is it?
But pay no attention to Belke wants it to be Rapahoe, Brian.
No, it's
Rapahoe.
Rapinoe, isn't it? I think
I think it's Rapinoe or Rapinoe.
Yeah, and that she, shanked the goal-winning kick at the end.
Oh, it's so good.
I thought that was, I didn't lose any sleep over that one. Let's put it that way.
Well, no question about it. What do you follow sports very much?
Not so much. I mean, I learned a long time ago that there are people who just love sports and they can talk baseball, statistics and football statistics, and Mac Morey's one of those people.
Yeah.
My fascination became politics, and I just realized that I didn't have enough room in my brain for everything. So I had to make some decisions. And so I focused on politics and learned that. But no, I mean, I care about the Titans. I'll sit down and watch a good football game. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, I do talk to people and they say, your Saturday, it's gone.
No question.
If you follow college football, and I don't want to get that deeply involved that it takes away from some of the other things that I like to do.
All right, real quick, and you may be talking about this on your... Well, what are you talking about on the show? We're out of town. What are you talking about on the show today? What can we listen to?
Well, there's not going to be a special session if the executive committee of the Republican Party of Tennessee has their way. They had a meeting this weekend. We'll talk about that, and then at 4:35, be joined by the chairman of the GOP, Scott Golden, to get his take on it and what it means. They say no special session.
Love it.
Which has been my long-held position, and I think they're right.
There he is, Brian Wilson, coming up in mere moments right after Mac Morey and the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Have a fun time, Brian. We'll be listening, and we'll be back tomorrow at high noon. Until then, have a great day, folks. So long.